there's a big idea behind this, and it's something that is obvious in the books. We were just talking about this before we started recording. Is that relationships run the world. Our friend Chris Powers introduced me to this guy at his private event. Because there's all these private events people don't know about, right? In many cases, they're invite only. Like Chris Powers has an invite only 50-person event in Texas. Most of the people in the Texas event were like, it was crazy the people he had there. It's like probably 80-90% of them were from Texas. So you had like a bunch of oil and gas people. You had people who had a real estate company, had like $500 million a year in revenue. You had all these family offices. And one of the guys Chris introduced me to was he was hired by a bunch of wealthy oil and gas Texas family offices to host private events for other family offices. And he said this line that fucking blew, like, was perfect, exactly what I had in mind. And I've realized this in the relationships that I've built. He's like, the relationships between the right people produce a nonlinear return. And if you look at all the people that have had like huge impacts in your life, it's only a handful. Like my relationship with Patrick, that's a nonlinear return. He literally plucked me from obscurity and said, hey guys, I think this is good. This guy's more obsessed with podcasts than anybody else I've met. You should pay attention to this. At Founders Only, I invited all the speakers that came were like legit friends of mine, people I've spent a ton of time with, and they were all A players is not even the word. The perfect example of this is my friend Rick Gerson, who gave, I think, the first talk about relationships around the world. And he told, let me back up. Every event I do will not be like, there's no recording. It's like, you have to be there. Right. And so it's like, hey guys, everybody be cool. Don't record. You could say you're here or whatever, but, people talk way more open and freely when not being recorded. And Rick told this fantastic story of how meeting Sam Zell, because Sam was one of his best friends and his mentor for 25 years, literally changed his career. The relationship between Rick and Sam Zell produced a nonlinear return. And so my idea was like, okay, well, there's this idea that keeps happening where like my audience will pull products out of me. And so for years, they kept saying, can you introduce me to other founders that listen to founders? And I was like, well, I don't have no mechanism to do this. And then Patrick and Brent gave me the mechanism to do that. What I did is like, for the first event, and I won't do this in the future, I read over every single application because I didn't know. I was real nervous. I didn't know if I could do this. But what was remarkable to me is like I knew I had like obviously a high value audience that listened to founders. I think it's obvious. But there's so many people that were remarkable people that I didn't know were listening that applied to go to the event. And then I realized, oh, this is a mechanism for founders to build relationships with other founders, investors to build relationships with other founders and each other, but also a mechanism for these people to reveal themselves to me. And as a result, because of that event, I went through, 500, 600 applications, whatever the number is, picked 150. Now I'm aware of these really interesting people that I'm interested in building deeper relationships with. And so like, I think that was like the biggest unlock.